I'm coming to you once again live with the LaCroix in my hand. It's almost empty though, this one. I'm not a huge fan of the watermelon, but bottoms up. Hello friends, my name is Miranda. Welcome back to my universe and happy Miranda Monday! Today I wanted a more laid back and conversational type video. I've seen a lot of talk recently on YouTube, actually for quite some time, but videos keep popping up for me of various booktubers talking about this topic of how many books do booktubers really read, or are they lying to you? And I have always thought that this topic was so interesting because I genuinely don't really think about that. Yes, I compare myself to other people when it comes to how much we read all the time, especially because when I first started my YouTube channel, I read 101 books. Like, that is a ton of reading, and I was still in high school when I did that. I have no idea where I found that time, and I have yet to hit that number again, but I have gone through so many different seasons in my life, so many years where I read a lot, and then last year I only read a single book. I finished The Drawing of the Three by Stephen King, and that was it. So I've been reading a lot of my life, and I have seen very high highs and very low lows when it comes to how many books I read. And so I compare myself to a lot of other people when I watch their wrap-ups, their yearly wrap-ups, their May wrap-ups. How many books I read this summer? Oh my gosh, I read 30 books in just 2 months. Type deal, right? And so when I watch those kinds of videos, there's always a little voice in the back of my mind telling me, oh my gosh, Miranda, you're not reading enough. Why aren't you reading more? And so there's always that pressure, and I'm always fighting against it, right? Because I read at the pace that's comfortable for me. I always have, and I'm going to continue to do that. But this topic overall of if booktubers are lying to us about how much they read, I've never thought of it like that. I never wonder if people lie about those things, mainly because full-time booktubers read for a living. So of course their numbers are going to be higher. And of course I have to remind myself of that, right? I'm somebody who is a part-time booktuber. I am a full-time student. I work part-time, and I do YouTube very, very part-time. On top of my master's program, I have my internship that I am in the middle of. So I have a lot of responsibilities in my life right now. Of course, I'm not going to be able to read 30 books in 2 months, right? Like, my 2025 reading goal was 30 books altogether. And so far I have read 12 books, which overall that averages out to about 1 book every 9 days, which means if I continue at this rate, I will read about 40 books, which is pretty good compared to last year. But I mainly wanted to make this video to share with you my experience with booktube and reading, and how much I read, how I'm able to balance all of my responsibilities and my hobbies together with reading being my biggest hobby, of course. And I just overall wanted to have a conversation about how much booktubers read, because I think that this is a major point that people miss, is that you read as much as you prioritize reading. You read as much as you want to read. And I think booktubers, I'm a booktuber myself, right? So I'm speaking of myself as well. When I say this, I think booktubers, we unintentionally sometimes put a lot of pressure on people to read a lot. Oh, why aren't you reading more? Which, we're not asking you that. And if a booktuber is asking you that, maybe don't watch them because that's not really great. But I think sometimes readers will consume booktube content and think about all the books they want to read and almost shun themselves for not reading as much as they would like to, which is why I think this conversation is important, and why I think it is really awesome when booktubers take the time to go through their weekly routine, their monthly routine of reading, how much they realistically read, right? I actually want to very soon make a week in my life video for you all. However, that means I have to mentally prepare to film everything that I'm doing. I mean, not everything, right? But most of what I'm doing and explain my week to you. And I'm so busy as is. So I'm just trying to find a week that is in general pretty good for me to show you, and is pretty generalized and average of what a week in my life looks like. But I am wanting to film that and get that out to you very soon, probably in the next month or two is my hope. But I personally love when YouTubers are really real, and so I'm wanting to produce that for you. I want to be very transparent in my schedule and how much I read. So here we go. Believe it or not, whether you've been around this long or not, my channel is 7 years old. A little over, I think it's like 7 years and 3 months at this point old. So I've been on YouTube for quite some time, and there have been years where I have not posted any content or posted just a few videos here and there. And then there's years where I am very, very consistent. And so once again, life is full of very high highs and very low lows and everything in between. And so I've definitely experienced that. I've experienced needing to take mental health breaks, setting boundaries for myself, and recognizing that sometimes my hobbies change. And it's interesting, as a booktuber, right, who wants to do this for a really long time, I absolutely love sharing my love for books with everybody. I think that that's one of my biggest fears, is when I hit reading slumps, or when I realize, you know what, I don't really like reading as much anymore. And I have felt that with being in a completely safe and great headspace. Even this year, I have experienced weeks where I don't even want to pick up a book, and I would rather sit in bed and watch YouTube, watch a movie, stay up a little later and play games with my family, right? Like, there are times where I don't like to read, and I think sometimes booktubers don't normalize that. And it's this constant, you have to always be reading. And I don't think that's realistic at all, because hobbies fluctuate, right? I've seen that in every single human being in my life. We don't always do something all of the time, 24/7. Of course, you're going to be burnt out, right? Unless, of course, you find the routine that works for you. But this is all of our first time living life on the planet. Like, we're always trying to figure it out, right? So my longest reading slump was definitely last year. That lasted about 1.5 years, I believe. And that was when I only read the one book. All this time, I'm always reading Stephen King in the background. Even when I only read one book, the one book was a Stephen King book. However, I digress. I really love reading. I would say I read about a book every 9 days. I don't know exactly how many pages I read. I like to read at least 2 or 3 chapters a day of whatever book I'm reading. If they're longer chapters, sometimes I just do one. And so even though sometimes this can cause me to struggle with making content for YouTube, because, right, one book every 9 days, that's not enough books for me to be reading to be able to churn out a book review every week. So a lot of the time I'm trying to make videos like this, or trying to come up with other ideas for videos. So it looks different every week. And then, of course, there's weeks where I read a ton, like when I was churning and burning through the Hunger Games series once again. I feel like I read those very, very fast, and maybe a little too fast. If I was to do it again, I would definitely slow down. And especially with Catching Fire, if you have watched those vlogs, I'm pretty open, I believe, in my Catching Fire and my Mockingjay reviews or vlogs. I'm pretty open about how fast I read Catching Fire. I stayed up until 2 a.m. reading it. And I used to do that all the time in high school. I'm gonna be honest with you. I did that all the time in high school. I did that all the time in college. During COVID, I would read super, super late into the night. But now, being an adult, adult Miranda, she can't really do that anymore without suffering major consequences the next morning. I actually experienced like a mini burnout, but obviously I had this goal of reading the entire Hunger Games series, and I couldn't just stop with Catching Fire. So luckily that fire, no pun intended, kept me moving forward, and I was able to finish the rest of the series. And now I'm still reading and I'm fine. I'm definitely not burnt out anymore, but I hit a pretty low at 2 a.m. because I finished Catching Fire and then I edited the video that night and I had it scheduled and everything to be published. I had that video scheduled that night, 2 a.m., to be published the next morning, 10 a.m. So it was a lot. And so even recently, even after 7 years, I'm still figuring out my pace, and I'm still figuring out that YouTube doesn't control my reading habits, and it shouldn't. So my reading definitely fluctuates, and it totally depends on what I'm doing every week. If I am on vacation, if I have a weekend off, which is very rare nowadays, but it still happens, I usually am reading a lot, and I tend to read a lot more during those times. But if it's like a rise and grind week where I am doing multiple things in a day, I have to wake up, go to my internship all day for 8 hours, and then I come home, get ready for work, and I go to work, right? Like, I don't read as much during that time. So it fluctuates, especially when I feel like I would rather do something else. I want to let you know that no matter how many books you've read, no matter what your goal is for reading, whether you even read books, if you just watch my videos just for fun, if you stumbled on this video and you're watching it just for fun, it is okay. It's okay to change your hobby. It's okay to not read for a long time. I didn't read for 1.5 years almost, right? Like, and I make content part-time. Obviously part-time. I would really suck as a full-time YouTuber just because I read very little, but it is okay. Don't let anybody else tell you that you should be reading a certain number, that you should read less, that you should read more. There is always going to be people yapping away, hating on how much you're reading or how little you're reading. You cannot please everybody. So find what works for you. Even now, like, I have a list right here on my desk of things I have to get done today, and I wrote on there, read, because I enjoy prioritizing my hobbies. I'm making sure I'm making time for my hobbies. I'm also a huge fan of using whatever format of book works for you, right? If you could not tell, I'm a huge physical book girly. I love my physical books. If I don't physically own a book, the chances of me reading it are very, very slim. And so I've always been this way. I do still like to listen to audiobooks and read ebooks every once in a while. Ebooks I'm not a fan of, and I don't know what it is. I wish I was a Kindle girly, but I'm not. But a good audiobook I can get behind. So I utilize library cards and online platforms with my library cards to rent out and borrow audiobooks. So technology is so amazing that we have access to all of these things and resources. So I highly encourage you to do so. If you aren't able to own books, visit the library. And if you don't like physical books, reading physical books, try ebooks or audiobooks, right? Just see how it works for you. So if you're wanting to read more, just expand your horizons. If you find yourself reading books that you don't really enjoy, try different genres, right? Like, you have to find your niche and your home and where you feel comfortable and yourself in. At the end of the day, you read at the pace you want to read at. And I just hope that this video was a really good reminder to you that life is in seasons. Life goes in seasons. It has its ups and its downs. It is okay to not be reading all the time. So I know that's a repeat of what I've already said, but I want to hammer it into your skull that comparison is the thief of joy. Stop comparing yourself. So much easier said than done, and I know that, but I hope that me being a little bit real and vulnerable with you, that my life is crazy and I genuinely am not reading as much as I would like to, but I'm making it work. Feed into the hobbies you love and feed into yourself. Do what you need to grow. So yeah, I believe I said everything that I wanted to say. I will get back on my Monday schedules because I hear you all, and a lot of you have been wanting me to post on Mondays again. So here I am posting on a Monday again. And so next Monday, next week, I will have a book review for you, and I will hopefully be getting back into book reviews because it's been a little bit since I've made an actual book review video. So I'm gonna get back on that. But for now, I'll leave you with all of that. Thank you so much for watching and for supporting me and for sticking around this long. You are so amazing. You're so loved. I'm so glad that you're here. And yeah, give me a like if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Please comment down below if you have any thoughts, feelings. If another booktuber has made a video like this that you really enjoyed, or maybe you have made a video on this, share your thoughts with me. I would absolutely love to talk with you about this topic. I love you all so, so much. Please be safe, make good choices, and I definitely will be seeing you next week. Bye!